Algebra, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about intercepts. It's going to be the first official part of the graphing unit. Okay, I know we're on their functions, but really it's graphing. It's kind of two separate things. But intercepts, very basic stuff. Okay, it's one of the easier ways to know how to graph as long as there's actually two intercepts. Okay, so you should know this, but we have two. We have the x-intercept. Okay, it's simply where line intersects x-axis. Okay. Now again, just pause if you need to. And then the y-intercept is when the line intersects the y-axis. Now, one thing you will have to know is kind of what these look like. Okay. If it intersects the x-axis, if you think about a graph. All right, so one thing you need to know is how it's going to write. If we're talking about the x-axis, so that means it's crossing the horizontal line, it has no y values, it didn't go up or down at all, it's just crossed the x-axis. Same thing for the y-axis. If it crosses the y-axis, that means it didn't go right or left at all, so those values are going to be 0. So for here, you might have something like 5, 0. For the y-axis, you might have something like 0, 2. Okay? Where we have x, y, x, and y. Okay? From there, we can do many things. You can either find the intercepts or you can graph the intercepts depending on what's given to you and stuff like that. So, in example 1, okay, we got 2. This is in a table. You need to identify both the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Okay? So, x and y. Well, part of the definition is the x-intercept is whenever you have y equals 0. Okay? When you have the y-intercept, it's when x equals 0. So we just find those points in the table. So for the x-intercept, we find where y equals 0, and that's right here. Okay, 12, 0. So my point is 12, 0. And then just kind of like the opposite for the y-intercept, whenever x is 0, which is the top point, so that one is going to be 0, 4. Okay, those are your answers. Go ahead and pause real quick. Try B. Shouldn't take more than a minute. And here we go. So again, find where the zeros are. The first one where y equals 0, we have this top point for the x-intercept. So I have 800, 0. Now obviously you're not going to graph that on a traditional graph, but keep in mind there's going to be kind of story problems and application problems to these things. Okay? And then the second one where x equals 0 is going to be your y-intercept. So we have 0, 36. And those are the answers. Okay? So pause if you need to. Then we got one last problem. So this is where if you're given an equation and you need to find the intercepts. Right now, some of you might know how to graph that. Okay? I'm not going to say I doubt it, but that's not the easiest thing to graph just because it's not in a technically graphable form, which you'll learn soon. But the one way you can almost always graph a line is by finding 2 points. Okay, 2 points make a line. Those 2 points can be your x-intercept and your y-intercept. Okay, so to do this, we apply the same rule we just talked about. When y is 0, that gives me my x-intercept. Okay, so to find the x-intercept, we would plug in that 0 for y, and we'd solve for the x. So I get 3x minus 2 times 0 equals 12, and then I just solve that little chunk, okay? You'll notice this middle term, it just goes away, it's just 0. So I get 3x equals 12, divide by 3, and I get x equals 4. Okay, so my x-intercept for this problem is 4, 0. Okay, that's the x-intercept. And then you do the opposite to find the y-intercept. We have 3 times 0 minus 2y equals 12. And then just work to solve it. You'll notice whatever term you're plugging the 0 into is just going to go away. So we get negative 2y, don't forget the negative, equals 12. And we'll just have a little blur. Okay. and then we would divide by -2, and we'd get y equals -6. So therefore my y-intercept is 0, -6. Okay, now that was pretty basic. Okay, most of them aren't going to be too bad when I'm asking you to do that. Okay, but that's the basics of x and y intercept, how to find them. Obviously, you know, I don't have a graph up here. You will have to graph some, but they're not that bad. We all should know how to graph from last year. So that's it for today, and I'll see you next time.